Let's now welcome on board Arvind Sanger as well, Managing Partner at Geosphere Capital, and understand what he's making of not just the US equity markets, what's happening in the globe as well. Arvind, hi, good morning and good evening to you. Just wanted to understand firstly, how long do you think the Trump rally is going to last and how much more headroom does it have? Although it doesn't seem to be rubbing off in India quite like.
Well, I think the Trump rally last week was a real party, and the party lasted all week. I think now we're starting to get some indications of what his, initial cabinet or some of his key members of his administration may look like. And so I think that maybe we get a little bit more, good news. But I think now we have to wait with the somewhat bated breath for how strong is it going to be the tariff front? How good will be the tax policy? Clearly, we're going to see deregulation. So there are competing forces which suggest that, clearly the deregulation on the crypto front is great for Bitcoin. But when we talk about the rest of the economy, we have to worry a little bit about tariffs. We have to worry a little bit about deficit. So I don't think the markets can keep going straight up without getting a clarity of what is he going to emphasize. So I think, usually markets have a year-end rally. I think it has come a little early. I think the markets will be fine, but they will be looking for signs along the way. And those signs could cause it to rally more or maybe even take some profits. It's been a great run in a very short period. So I'm not counting on this rally to have a lot more legs without more juice being given by, President Trump or others around him in terms of what's coming.
Yeah, and it's, meant to be seen whether or not these moves are sustainable as well in the long haul. Arvind, morning, wanted to get in your take then as to what the implications of the China move have been, or rather the latest data point, the lower than expected inflation rate in China. How are you reading into that?
Well, I think China's problem is not inflation or lack thereof. China's problem is lack of growth. And the expectation was that they were holding off on an announcement till after the US election. And if President Trump won, there would be a more significant, financial support for the economy. We did not get, as big a number as people had hoped after the Trump election. I think it's one of those situations where China is also trying to use its bullets somewhat judiciously. So they put in, 1.4 trillion or something like that. They announced yesterday. But I think what they're waiting to see, in my opinion, and I think in many observers' opinion, is they're waiting to see how far does President Trump go? Because the reality is China is clearly the number one target. And if he has already announced that he's reappointing Robert Lighthizer as his, trade representative, then that means that China is going to be clearly in the crosshairs of the US administration. And so the real question is China's economy is soft. They've done something to help the economy, but there's going to be more headwinds coming on the export front for China, which has been a big help this year. The export has been one of the few pockets of strength. So I think that the China situation will remain kind of in this tough doldrums till we get clarity on how far Trump is going to go and how far China is going to go in terms of responding to President Trump.
Yeah, the China factor is yet to be watched out for. Arvind, hi, this is Anisha joining in the conversation. Wanted to get a better sense then, what does all of this mean for India? You talked about the Santa Claus rally coming to US in a bit of a hurry, but the Indian markets have actually seen a bit of a reverse trade in the last one and a half month. But given the fact that, of course, there are bond markets which are getting a bit more attractive, US equities have been doing well, do you consider the possibility that this FII outflow will only continue for the Indian markets, or do you expect a reversal now?
I think the big outflow has happened. So I'm not expecting anything big further. But I think the reality is that the Indian market has its own problems. The Indian economy is clearly showing signs of a mid-cycle slowdown. I think if you take everything from FMCG to MFIs to some of the banks like IndusInd Bank, and then you're talking about, Tata Motors, the auto sector, the CV sector, across the spectrum, we're seeing signs that the economy is slowing down. I don't think of this as a structural slowdown. I think of this as a mid-cycle slowdown, but nevertheless, it is a slowdown. In a market that was priced for perfection, I think some of the profit taking is partly to go to other markets like China, which were looking cheap, but partly also to maybe take a little bit chips off the table after the huge run that India's had over the last couple of years. And I think in my opinion, India's fate is in its own hands to the extent that the China trade, at least partly the repositioning, has played out to a significant extent. Now the question is, when do we start to see signs of re-acceleration in the Indian economy? Because without that re-acceleration, I think the FI is not going to be jumping back in with both feet.
Absolutely. Arvind, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.